the kind of part, in a way, you've specialised in is the loner, the misfit, the outsider. You do a lot of those.
Well, sometimes those are the most interesting parts. Anyway, I think. I don't know. It seems that I guess it's sometimes it's how you get off, what foot you get off on, you know. And early on in my career, I guess I made a few of those type films, and it just sort of stayed. I guess it caught, and some of them were successful. So I think that it started a trend. Not that I'm, you know, I think it's fine. I feel that with this particular character, as I say, I got a sense of his tragic flaw, so to speak. I got a sense of it when I read the script, and I thought that it was an interesting thing to explore.
It's not that you feel yourself to be a misfit, an outsider, and a loner.
The outsider and the loner, yeah. There's obviously some kind of an attraction for me in those parts, although with this movie, I was asked to do it. The director obviously had me in mind for the part. So that's usually half the battle. It was the same thing with The Godfather. Francis Coppola wanted me to play the part of Michael Corleone in it. I had no idea that was the part for me. I thought it was Sonny Corleone. That was the part which had it was more obviously the more demonstrative. It was a media role, so to speak, but it was really Michael's transitions from what he was to becoming what he became. That was the sort of juice of the part, and it took me a while to realize that, but I didn't see myself. So a lot of the times I don't see myself in the role, and I'm the director usually is the one that encourages me.
Because the irony is that you almost got fired from The Godfather, didn't you, by the producer?
Yeah.
So it was Coppola who saved you. What exactly happened?
Well, it was Coppola right down the line who wanted me always for the part. When I myself didn't want to play it, and when the producers didn't want me, and Francis did. That's the way it is with directors, which is why I listen to what they say usually about this kind of thing, because they have a vision, and casting is a part of the vision. And so with Francis, he just saw me in the part, and nobody could convince him otherwise, and so he stuck to it. And
the rest is history, as they say.
Fortunate for me, yeah.
You said that the Michael Corleone in Godfather 3 was the kind of character you would like to be, in that he was ruthlessly decisive. He saw what had to be done and went ahead and did it.
Sure.
And would you like to be like that?
I like all characters in drama, because you know what they're going to do, and you just, you know, they know who they are, and they know where they've been, and they know where they're going. At least you do, even if they don't. You follow my drift. So it's enjoyable to play people that are not like you.
Are you not like that at all?
Well, I have my
decisive.
moments, you know. I sometimes know where I am. That's about it, I think.
It's very difficult sometimes for us to know where you are, because it's particularly difficult to see any kind of plan in your career, because, you know, I was looking through it. You've done 19 films in 23 years, but from 1983 to 1989 you made one movie, and since 89 you've made 6. Now, what happened around 1989 to inspire this burst of energy?
Oh, well, I felt what it was like to be broke, for one thing. That sort of can inspire you.
It was.
I was down on the box. It was time to work, and in order to just go on. So I went back to work, because 4 years is a long time to take off and sort of live the way I live. So I went back for that reason, and also because it was obvious to me that it was too long between movies. It had been my practice in the past to just make movies every couple of years, mainly because I didn't understand films as well as I think I do now. I didn't understand my place in movies. It was like I was a stage actor, is what I thought of myself as, someone who sort of knew what I was doing there, and that was where I belonged, since that's where I started. And I thought films was a kind of a lucky thing that happened to me, and I should just sort of get on with it and then go and do my plays, because it was alien, all the wires and the cameras. And I think after making my own little movie of Heathcote Williams' Local Stigmatic, and engaging myself in that way and learning about the medium from that aspect of doing it, getting in there with film and learning about it from that point, I think I started to understand film better and became more interested in it.
Are you more committed to film?
So
now?
I am, and also I'm more interested now in just playing a part and doing a role and letting it go, I guess. And it in that understanding, I think it made it easier for me to make movies. Not that it's ever easy, but it's easier than it was. It was very difficult for me early on in my career.
Because at the beginning of the 80s were not really kind to you, were they? Because you had films like Cruising, Author, and Scarface, and there were very interesting things in all those films, but they were not big successes in any way, were they?
Well, you see,
and this
I don't
after
think
all the success you'd had before.
The first two movies that you mentioned weren't, but Scarface was a huge success. It's interesting is how films are perceived. You can be in a movie, and the perception is that it's a successful movie, and it's not making it. But there's a certain amount of copy on it, and it's perceived as a success. With Scarface, it was such a controversial venture that it wasn't perceived as a successful movie, but it's indeed one of the most successful movies I've ever made, actually.
You came from, I think, a working-class Italian-American background in New York. No doubt, well, I know that you had to struggle in the early days, and then suddenly in your third film, Godfather, you're transposed into a huge, great international star. I would have thought that must have been very hard to adapt to.
Yeah, for me it was a difficult adjustment, because on top of being, at the time, being in a successful film like Godfather, there was the other side of it, which is the visibility. So not only is it, I guess, difficult for certain people anyway, at least me, to deal with success, it was also difficult to deal with visibility, because I was the kind of person who enjoyed blending and moving around in circles that I could observe and be a part of. And one of your newspapers once described me as shy and retiring, and I thought that was very comforting to hear. And kind of, I took it as a great compliment. But having this kind of image of myself anyway as being somewhat shy, it was always difficult for me to encounter people and respond immediately. It would always take a while. So after the first sort of relative success on stage, and second, I had a few successes in New York City, it was easier for me to deal with people but here's the double-edged sword to it. On the one hand, I was accepted without having to earn it. And I think it was the discovery that I didn't have to earn relationships, that they came automatically because you were accepted automatically. So one didn't have to call on the very things in oneself that you bring to the floor when you're trying to communicate with someone. So you arrest these feelings and these ways of communicating, and by arresting them, it's sort of disconcerting. It makes it difficult for you.
It disconcerted others too, didn't it? Because you did have a reputation at one time for being somewhat reclusive, somewhat unapproachable, not easy to get on with.
Yeah. Well, that came mainly because I had I took a posture early on in my career that it was the acting and doing the parts, that I was going to sort of speak to that, and that I felt that an actor animated, and if we know too much about an actor, that somehow it takes away from how we will accept the character they're playing. Now, this was an idea I had, and it was a significant idea to me. I don't really believe that as much anymore, although I think there's a certain extent. I think too much exposure, there's a tendency to become concerned with the personality rather than what the actor's doing, because the play is the thing. The play is first, and the character's first in the work, because that's very much the reason I'm here today, is because of the characters I've played, and not because of my scintillating personality.
Oh no, that too, that too. But you did have problems, didn't you, coping with fame originally? Was that part of it?
I mean, maybe for me, sudden success was a kind of a crisis in a way. And although I was close to 30, I still feel that, you know, age is relative. You know, my maturity maybe didn't take place till later. I found that I had to cope with it in a way, and one doesn't want to get into a kind of a fetchy phase about something so wonderful as the success of what you do. So you try not to pander to yourself and your subjectivity about it, because it's kind of odious if you go on about how miserable your life is when you've gotten something that everybody wants. So I really want to say that it was never really that bad for me, because, as I say, I was lucky and have been.
What sort of things do you look for in a role? I mean, for instance, in Scent of a Woman, what was it in that part that really attracted you?
You read the script, I guess, and usually I don't think I can do anything. I don't think I'm right for anything or can do anything. That's how I start. And that seems to always have been the case with me. That's why I sort of prefer seeing things, plays and things. And then when I see the part, someone acting in it, then I get a sense of what it is, like I was looking at a model, if I were a painter. That's why I like to do real characters that really exist, because like Frank Serpico was a real person, so I could look at him and I have something that I could mold or sketch or paint finally. So when you just have the text, you know, you're involved in the text. And with this particular piece, I heard there was an echo there, something about his tragic flaw in this character. It stimulated me and gave me some kind of a sense of something that I could possibly reach for.
Let's talk now about the film that hardly anybody has seen. You've already mentioned it, The Local Stigmatic, your film. This appears to be a kind of obsession of yours, isn't it? I mean, why?
Well,
tell me briefly what it's about and why you've spent so long working on it.
I like to think of it, it was a passion of mine. It no longer is, because it's finished and it's shown in your local museum.
Yeah, but why in a local museum? Why not in a cinema?
Well, because it sort of needs a context. It's the kind of movie I make. I venture into experimental explorations in film now. It's what I've been doing. Partially, my movie career supports that. After a steady diet, so many years of being in situations where you have to produce something, you're being paid a lot of money, so you have to come through with the goods. And a lot of people have to come and see it in order for it to be successful. So you're riding on that line constantly, and it's a kind of a pressure that I think sometimes pulls at you and sort of can restrict you. And here's an opportunity to work experimentally and exploratory stuff and get into that kind of a vein.
Because you financed it too, didn't you, this film? If somebody came to you and said, look, show me something that typifies what you do, is The Local Stigmatic, is that the film that you would show?
That's a good point, because if anyone seeing that film would say, that's a part of Al that he is involved with, that kind of reach, whatever the reach is. Because it's a favorite saying of mine, a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for. So one's reach in popular movies may not be as, you know, you might not go as far because it's too much of a risk, there's too much at stake, and you're liable to be shot down for it. And it's nice to reach and risk when you know that it's about something that you have a passion for. But if you're doing a job and you're sort of doing it for someone else who's going to put you together and cut this movie the way they feel it should be cut and put it together the way then there's a reserve about that. You know, although I do believe in risking even within that context.
Which of your films, though, would you classify as ones in which you've gone out on a limb? I mean, for instance, the one that everybody now regards as your comeback picture after the layoff, Sea of Love. I mean, that in many ways was a kind of dangerous thing for you to do, wasn't it?
Well, I don't think it was as much. No, I think it was a familiar character. It was a well-written character of a New York cop, close to my age, close to things that could be represented as me, that could be believed that I would be involved in. And I think that I was more believable in a part like that. I was surprised by the kind of success it got, but I do think that it wasn't as much a risk as, say, a Scarface was, which was a kind of a reach in a larger sense that De Palma wanted to make a movie that was, I guess, speaking to a certain kind of phenomenon that was happening in our time in the 80s.
I wouldn't have thought there was any part of you in Scarface, because I mean, you never were into drugs, but to an extent you did have a drink problem. Was that again part of all what was going on in the 80s when you were getting kind of confused about what you were about?
No. I had stopped drinking for a while. No. As much as anything, a lifestyle had to do with, because one's lifestyle, especially this kind of a thing I do, which is movies, which takes me all over the world, which is plays and movies and characters and concepts and all kinds of different explorations into the psyche of different people. These are adventures for me, and they've taken me all different places and in different worlds, and have put me in. So you go through phases, I guess, and I don't believe Scarface was an extremely healthy time in my life.
Do you know the one thing everybody warns you about when you say,
Did I answer your question though? I wonder. I think I did.
I think you answered the question. Yeah, I think you answered the question.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody says, look, for God's sake, don't ask him about Revolution, which was the one film you made between 83 and 89. And why? Because it was a flop. I mean, you must admit that. But everybody's entitled to a flop, surely.
Some flops you have are like really quiet ones. And then there are others, there's expectation. And when you, again, go out on a limb there, and I sort of feel that with Revolution, that I was this way about doing it. I didn't know if I should or shouldn't, but again, the thing is, you do a movie like that, and the memory of that movie, the actual filming of it, and the living through that time and that period 200 years ago is about the most memorable movie I've ever made in that respect. So you see, sometimes you're having a painful experience, and it turns out to be pleasant when the movie is out there. Sometimes you're having a wonderful experience, and the movie doesn't work.
But it wasn't the disappointment in the way that turned out that caused you to be off the screen for 4 years and say, the hell with the movies, I'll go back to the theatre.
It would have to have had something to do with it, although I don't know if it did consciously, because I did feel that that we finished it in September and it had to be released in December. So I've always felt that it was not as finished as it could have been. I don't know that if it would have been finished that it would have been any better, frankly. So I don't know that, and really, so, but I did have a reaction to that. Yeah, no doubt I did.
I must say, it's very good to see you back working so prolifically as you have been over the last 3 years, but do you think that you are as big a player in the movies as you could have been and should have been if you hadn't had this long layoff?
Well, I never thought of that, but who knows? I might be less, because I might have made some real turkeys. Besides the turkeys I made, I could have made a few more. I think that what's important is that you don't become too familiar with the public, because then they may not accept you readily in certain roles. Like when I saw Sea of Love, I remember saying after I saw it, well, it'll be a while before I try that kind of character again, because you can grow tired of a thing. And so I always thought it was a good policy, a wise policy, not to overdo yourself. That's a wonderful thing about theater, because it gives you a chance to play and exercise your craft and do your thing without the world seeing you all the time.
Then what about a film that also we've seen you in very recently, Glengarry, Glen Ross? I think it's a terrific play. And again, was it because it was a terrific play and terrific part, and you'd seen the play presumably?
I was offered the play actually first in New York City. David Mamet offered me the part, and I was unable to play it because I was coming here in London to do American Buffalo. So I always wanted to play it, and then I saw the production. I thought it was terrific part, and Tony Montagna was really terrific in the part. And then I went on, and then this movie idea came to someone, and I believe Jerry Tarkowski, the producer, offered me the movie. And then it was a matter of casting it and getting the right director. And because it's a certain kind of movie, it's not a, it's not the kind of, it's a play really. And when you're moving a play and making it a movie, and sometimes the transitions work marvelously, like in The Dresser, for instance, or other plays that I've seen that have been movies. And sometimes they don't quite connect. So this, especially this, because this was really pretty much verbatim what the play was. So it was important to find a cast and a director that could make that transition.
A hell of a cast. I mean, there's Alec Baldwin and Alan Arkin, you, Jack Lemmon. I imagine you didn't all go play for your full fees, otherwise they could never have got it on screen.
No, you couldn't, no. So everybody took a major reduction in salary, and so we worked it together like it was a play, as if it were a play. Yeah. And we spent the 2.5 weeks rehearsal, and then we shot it like a play in order.
You are notorious, famous, let us say, for deeply researching the characters you play. Now, what did you do to research a blind man in Scent of a Woman?
See, researching for actors seems to be so tangible. It's so immediate. It's kind of an easy thing to do when you think of it. Because there's so much, you have access after you've been around a while and people know who you are. You have access into places and people. If I want to play a cook, for instance, a short order cook, I can get into a restaurant and they'll let me go back there.
Well, as in Frankie and Johnny.
Yeah. If I want to play a blind person, a sightless person, the institutions, they allow me in to speak with the people. I've had, they have training films where people who are going blind or people who are related to blind people, sightless people, can view these training films, and you get a lot from that. But it's really talking to them and then experience yourself. And then finally to find a way to unfocus your eyes. I remember I had to speak during the filming of Scent of a Woman to a group of young aspiring actors in a high school. And I remember for the first 15 minutes speaking and I didn't focus. I didn't see them. I was talking to a mass like that because I was in it, I guess. And it was a rehearsal stage, so you sort of go into it really heavy in rehearsal. You just sort of pile it all on. You pile it all on because you feel, you need more than you're gonna need. So you really take it into your daily life and stuff. And then finally you start to shed it layer by layer until hopefully you can do it on cue.
So what about now? I mean, you are now in your 50s. I know you've often quoted Freud as saying all we have is work and love. Have you got both of those things? Are you a happy man now in your 50s?
All we got is work and Prozac.
Have you got those things?
Yeah, I got both, work and love, sure I have it. I have children, I have my friends, I have people that are close to me.
But you've never married. Is that likely to change? Is there any reason why you've never married?
I'd imagine there is, but certainly I don't know what it is. Maybe Freud does.
You have no aversion to it personally?
I felt like I've been married a couple of times, but I guess it's different when you really have been. I don't know. It's felt like something like that, without it ever being a contract that was so-called legal, I guess. But I feel that I certainly would consider it. It's not beyond consideration. Absolutely not.
You are now in your early 50s and presumably set in your ways. It must become increasingly difficult to adapt.
That chronicle age thing. 50s, yeah, certain things. But the maturity level, it's all different. We develop differently in different areas at different times, I guess. I sound like I'm smart or something, don't I?
Sounds very smart and very
It
mature,
does sound-
if I may say so.
Yeah, I heard that echo too. Maybe let's make a movie of it, I guess.
So what does the future hold?
Well, it's I'm going to that great city, Paris, in a couple of days. The future, movies and work.
Yeah, those are the things.
It's work. I'm fortunate. I have things that I'm going to be doing. And I'm doing some more of my experimental, exploratory stuff. I'm sort of snooping around with the camera and playing around with stuff, and then I'm going to go make a movie in March. And I hope that after that I can take a couple of plays I've been doing and tour with them, and maybe come here and go on a European tour. Is my wish, actually.
So chronological age or no chronological age.
It's going to be a
this new
catchphrase.
The catchphrase. This new or modern, present day, mature Al Pacino. Are you a much happier man than you were? I don't know, before, certainly before the layoff.
I don't know. Happiness seems always just, within reach, and so maybe I'll. I have it sometimes when I look at my child. I have it when I sometimes have a moment of whatever. I have it. I know the feeling, and I think I've had it before too, because it reminds me of something I had. Maybe it was 9.5. I was 9.5 years old, and I was napping. I think that's what that was.
Well, I hope you get some more of it in the future.
Thank you.